and allow yourself to really arrive. Let's make sure that all of us is here, not just our bodies, but our full attention and intention, our awareness. Just take a moment, and if you feel like any part of yourself is roaming around in the ether somewhere, or is lost in yesterday or tomorrow, just bring it back. Bring it back to right here, right now. Bring it back to this breath. Just keep bringing that mind back to the present moment. Back to right here, right now. This breath. Slowly bring the palms of your hands together into Namaste, and gently rub the palms of your hands against each other. Press the palms of your hands into your closed eyes. Slowly lower the hands and open the eyes. Welcome to Satsang. It's wonderful to be back after so many weeks. Beginning as always with a question that's come in advance from our family all over the world. And then we'll open it up to any questions that anyone here might have. How can we apply the teaching of Neti Neti, not this, to our spiritual practice? So, a beautiful meditation is a meditation that we call Neti Neti meditation. And it's a very simple to do, but very deeply profound meditation. And basically it looks like saying something like, I am not my sorry. I am not my skin. I am not the blood flowing beneath my skin. I am not my muscles. I am not my bones. And you go one by one through all of the different aspects of the body. From the most gross, like the clothes and the skin and limbs, to the most subtle, the chemical and electrical patterns of energy in our brain that we call thoughts or memories or emotions or beliefs. And with each thing you say, not this, I am not that. And you only move on to the next thing when you get kind of a full, yeah, I know it inside you. So if I say I'm not my clothes, the whole body-mind complex says, yeah, of course. Like, I know I'm not my clothes. Change clothes every day, sometimes a couple times a day. Obviously, nothing is happening to the self when I take off my clothes. Same thing as you go through your skin and your blood and your bones and your organs. And so there's a mental yes with each thing. As it gets more subtle, it sometimes takes a little bit longer to get the yes from the internal being. But eventually it comes because we realize, well, I'm not chemicals. I'm not serotonin. I'm not norepinephrine. I'm not dopamine that sit in little vesicles. Causing the chemical to be released and then a chain reaction into the next neuron. I'm not electricity. It went out, it came back, here we still are. No change. I'm not chemicals. And so if I realize that I'm not chemicals or electricity, then obviously I'm not my thoughts, my emotions, my beliefs. That's the meditation. But the question says, how do we bring Neti Neti into our spiritual practice? So not just the meditation, but in our lives. And it's a really powerful thing. You know, all of that which we do in our meditation, the whole point of it is to change how we live. Everything you experience in meditation is meant to be lived. It's not, oh, this is my meditative experience, and everything is one, and I'm one with God, and then I stand up from my meditation, and I hate you, and I hate you, and you bother me, and you make me angry, and you're the problem. Right? Then it means obviously your meditation is not very deep, not very profound. So everything we experience in meditation, we are supposed to take with us when we stand up. But this particular practice is really powerful to bring into your lives. Because you'll notice if you become aware, mindful, that as you move through your day, you have different reactions, different feelings. Frustration, anger, resentment, competition, jealousy, regret, guilt, greed, lust, right? I mean, we could do that all night. Like, this is what our days in our minds look like. Every time one of those arises, you get to look at it and say, Neti Neti, not this. There may be a pattern in the brain that we call anger. But we've already determined I am not the chemistry and electricity in my brain, so I am not my anger. There may be a chemical reaction in the body of hormones that we call lust. But I am not chemicals. We've already discovered that. Whether they're in my brain, whether they're in my bloodstream, whether they're pouring out of my adrenal glands, I'm not chemicals. Which means I'm not the lust, the stress, the anger. As things arise in your life, you get to look at them the same way that I look at the sari, or that you look at your skin or your bones or your muscles and you say, I am not this. Neti Neti. So the moment that you notice frustration arising, anger arising, stress arising, jealousy arising, lust arising, just look at it and say, Neti Neti. Not this. Not this. I am not my jealousy any more than I am my clothes. I am not my resentment any more than I am my kidneys. I am not my anger any more than I am my teeth or the chemistry in my brain. These are all aspects of the physical body. So as it arises in the day, just look at it. Neti, Neti. Not this. Not this. And it's a beautiful meditation in action to just bring you back. This is who I am. So that's how we bring it into our day. Do it as a meditation, but then live it in your day. Other questions? Any question that anyone here has? Yes.
There's probably not one.
He's just bringing you the microphone.
Sorry. Hi. There's probably not a single answer to this, but how do we pray?
How do you pray? Beautiful. Well, you're right. There isn't a single answer to it in the same way that if you say, how do you love your beloved? There's not a single answer, right? We all show the one we love that we love them in different ways. And yet, there's a thread that runs through it all. In the same way with prayer. The way we pray is with love. We go to God with love. Prayer is not bargaining. A lot of us think that prayer is bargaining. I'm going to go to God. I'm going to say, you give me this and I'll give you that. Right? You give me $1 million. The job I want. The house I want. The spouse I want. Whatever it is. You give that to me and I will meditate an hour a day. I will do 21 rounds of japa every day. I will chant 108 Hanuman Chalisas. I will go to the temple and I will do a special puja. I will donate a lot of money to the temple. So a lot of people think that prayer is bargaining. Like we're going to buy off God with the money, with the puja, with the japa. But that's not what prayer is. That's bargaining. Whether you do it with God or you do it with somebody on the street, it's bargaining. It's not love. It's not prayer. Prayer is when we actually go to God with love. You can speak, it can be silent. But it's a time of being together with the one we love. And we may spend it singing, chanting, speaking, reciting something. Simply hands on our heart, feeling the love. There's an infinite number of ways we may express that love. We may show up to pray with flowers. Not because God wants our flowers in this bargaining arrangement, but because we saw the flowers and we thought of our beloved, and so we brought them. And we offer them as the flower of our hearts. But prayer is just being with God. And having faith that God knows that which is needed. When a child goes and sits in the lap of the mother, the child doesn't need to say, oh, and by the way, in about 15 minutes, I think I'm going to need a diaper change. Don't forget. And tonight, please, for God's sakes, get me to bed early because I'm really tired. But feed me, for God's sakes, before that, okay? Just remember to do that. Doesn't need to be reminded what we need any more than a mother needs to be reminded by her child in her lap that the child needs to be fed, that the diaper needs to be changed. As the mother feels the love for the child, she knows what needs to be done. Maybe she can smell the diaper. Maybe she hears the baby's belly rumble. Oh, you're hungry. Oh, you're tired. So we go to God in love, like a child goes to its mother. The child isn't thinking, I'm going to go sit in mom's lap so that I can get a good diaper change. Or I better go sit in mom's lap so she feeds me tonight. Right? If that's the case, that's what we call child abuse, not parenting. If the child doesn't get fed unless the child reminds the parent, that's called child abuse. It's criminal. Mothers who are not abusing their children, not criminally negligent, remember to feed them anyway. Change the diapers anyway. Put the children to sleep anyway. So the child goes to sit in the mother's lap not thinking, oh, I better do this so I get food, but just to be there in the lap of the mother. Comes home from school, busy day, big exam. Just wants to come and crawl into mom's lap. I don't even mean little babies. But even as we get older, you come home from a day at school and just want to crawl into mom's lap. Just to be with her. Just to let all of that which I'm carrying to go, now it's in mom's hands. Whatever I was carrying now, I've just exhaled it into mom's hands. And in the same way, when we go to God, we go just wanting to be with God in prayer, just in love. And God knows what we need. God doesn't need you to remind him or her. Just connect in love. Because what you'll find is simply that connection in love is actually the answer to so much of that which we need. Just that loving connection. Just that lap of the divine is actually really what we need. Beautiful. Other questions? Yes.
Pranam Swamiji. Myself, Virendra Mehta. I'm a world record holder. My name is in Guinness Book of World Records for memorizing Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary with page numbers.
Wonderful.
Actually, a lot of people, I'm basically a celibate man. I'm working on semen power. But the question is, I'm putting one question on the behalf of the whole youth of world. They're asking, they are falling in lust. But actually to get mind power and the brain power and the photographic memory, we want celibacy. Mm-hmm. My question is, basically I'm training them, I'm guiding them, but again, I want to ask from you, how can we empower and how can we switch from lust to celibacy, which is the ultimate instrument, or you can say this is the only way to tap our potential and connect with the cosmic intelligence. Please acknowledge me.
The journey from lust to celibacy for tapping our mind power. So first of all, you said something very important that I want to make sure everyone heard. He began by saying he's a Guinness Book World Record holder for memorizing the entire Oxford Dictionary, including the page numbers. And that he practices celibacy because without that, he doesn't have the inner energy, the inner mind power to do this. And that now he's training others to be able to do that. So this is a lot of what our rishis and sages have said for thousands of years, which is that our internal ojas, that internal energy of the system, not just the physical body, but the energetic body. Every time we engage in sex, we're not just losing physical fluids of the body. We're actually also losing ojas. And so it weakens immune systems, but it also weakens mental power. Now, there's a couple of pieces about this, though. First of all, lust doesn't exist only in our genitals. So it's not if I can just keep my genitals under control, then I'm going to be okay. It actually exists in the mind as well. I may be physically celibate. I may not be engaging in any sexual activity at all. But if my mind is constantly thinking, oh my God, I can't believe this. This is ridiculous. I want to have sex so badly. Oh my God, I bet that person would be really great to have sex with. Oh God, I wonder what it would be like with that person. Oh, those people, I think they just went in to have sex. Now, if we are constantly thinking about it, we're actually worse off than if we're doing it. Because it's occupying all of our minds, so our mind power, of course, is completely gone. And the mind uses ojas as well. And so whether we are memorizing a dictionary or thinking about sex, they're both utilizing ojas. So just keeping the body under control is not actually enough. And this is why in our Indian tradition, we speak about different phases of life, because it's really clear that not everyone at every phase of their life is meant to be celibate. It's wonderful that you are. Congratulations. Many of us take vows of celibacy at young ages, take sannyas at young ages. I was only 29 when I took sannyas. But for a lot of people, that phase of life comes after the householder phase. That we first go through a whole phase of life called the Grihastashram phase, in which we are a householder and we have sexual relations, dharmic, monogamous, healthy sexual relations with our spouse. We end up with children. And after that, we start going into Vanprasthashram phase and Sannyasashram phase. So I mention that because you should not feel like somehow every one of you, at every phase of your life, needs to be celibate or you won't have your brain functioning. If you are not ready to be celibate, and the mind is not able to come under control, then you're actually worse off than if you simply engage in dharmic, monogamous, sexual relationships with your spouse. Because typically, in most relationships, you're not having sex 30 times a day, every day, 365 days a year, right? But when you're not having sex and you're thinking about it 30 plus times a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And all of that energy that is being wasted in the mind thinking about it is more harmful than an occasional dharmic, but is actually enhancing us. So I think the path is fantastic. I think it's definitely the right path for some people. It's the right path for more people as you get older. But along the way, conserving your ojas is very important. And by the way, not only sex is not the only thing that depletes it. Either doing it or thinking about it. Anger depletes it. Unnecessary talk depletes it. Gossip, negativity. Lots and lots of things deplete our ojas. You ever find yourself in a conversation with someone where you haven't even stood up, you're just sitting down chatting, but suddenly you find yourself like, oh my God, I'm so drained from this conversation. And all you've done is been gossiping or talking negatively about other people. That drains our ojas. All of the vasanas, they drain ojas. Desires drain ojas. Sitting here all day long, whether it's sex I'm desiring or more money or the office of the person next to me. Why does that person have the office? That's not fair. I want that office. I should have that office. We're depleting our ojas with every one of those thoughts. I'm too good for this little cubicle. Why does that person get the big office? Don't they know I'm the one who does all the work around here? You're depleting your ojas. So it's beautiful what you're doing. And it's a beautiful message to people of protect your ojas. And celibacy is certainly a very, very powerful way to do it. But it's important just to remember that it's not necessarily the right path for all people at all times. And with people for whom it's not the right path at that time, to help them work with their path so that they can conserve as much of that energy in thought, in word, in action as possible. So, yeah, thank you so much for bringing up that beautiful topic, and congratulations. Yes. Microphone? सूरज भैया माइक्रोफोन है अपने पास? यही रहो है ना भैया?
Namaste Sadhviji, absolute honor to be here. 4 years ago, my husband attended one of your satsangs and came back a vegan. And he was a carnivore before. But I want to know what you told him and what I'm a vegan too.
Wonderful.
And I could never do anything to even turn him vegetarian. What is the most convincing way that I can maybe take somebody one step closer towards veganism without proselytizing or without being preachy?
Great question, and I'm so glad. I'm so glad that your husband went back a vegan. That's fantastic news. You'd have to ask him exactly which argument I gave him, that after you'd been trying to convince him and it didn't work, that one argument did. First of all, you have to realize that a lot of times we tend sadly not to take what our family members say very seriously anyway. So there's a lot of times where what I say to children, for example, might be very similar to what their mother or father have been saying. But somehow they're going to take it, not from their mother or father, but they'll take it from me. Similar thing with husbands and wives. So it's possible that I gave some fantastic, very unusual argument that made him vegan. And it's possible also just that he heard it from me rather than from his wife. But for me, the most powerful arguments for a vegan diet, for those who are not already vegan, see, what you have to realize is anyone who deeply believes that the cow is holy and should not be eaten, should not be harmed, already at least is a vegetarian. So beginning with arguments about the holiness of the cow don't make a lot of sense, because clearly if they're eating meat, they don't think the cow is holy to begin with. So you're not going to get very far with that argument. Similarly, giving arguments like the animals are our sisters and brothers, or they're all God's creatures. Again, these are very true and I believe them. But they're also very obvious, meaning if someone believes that, they're already not eating animals. And if they don't already believe that, you simply telling them that the animals are our sisters and brothers is not going to make them believe that. The arguments that I find work the best are the ones that people haven't thought of, and the ones that tap into what most of us do believe. So let's say I don't think the cow is holy. Let's say I do not believe that animals are our sisters and brothers. I do not believe that they are God's creatures in the same way we are. Let's say I believe that God has put the animals on earth for us to eat them. Okay? It's not true, but just for argument's sake, let's say that's where I'm coming from. Well, then you're not going to get anywhere with me talking about holiness and one family and whatnot. So instead, I ask things like, what do you think about climate change? You worried about climate change? Are you worried about water shortages? I mean, the United Nations says that by 2040, the world is only going to have half the water it needs. In India, it'll be 2030. What do you think about children dying of starvation in Africa and other countries? Like, do you think that's okay? Tens of thousands of children die every day of starvation. You're going to be hard-pressed to find someone who says, oh, I think that's okay. Almost everyone you ask would say, oh my God, yeah, that's really wrong. Most people don't know that. Tens of thousands of children every day die of starvation. And what most people will say is, that's a tragedy. We should make more food. We should grow more food. We should feed them. And then you get to say, well, actually, did you know that we actually produce enough food, enough grain, rice, wheat, corn, soy, to feed 10 billion people a day? There's only 8 billion-ish on the planet. Not one person has to sleep hungry. Today, almost 1 billion people go to sleep hungry every night. And we produce enough food for 10 billion, more. The problem is all of that grain is not being used to feed people. It's being used to feed cows and pigs and chickens who become hamburgers and hot dogs and chicken McNuggets. And by cycling our grain through livestock, we end up with a food shortage. Because it takes 16 times as much grain to get beef as it does to get vegetarian food. So let's say I have 16 pounds of wheat, okay? Well, out of those 16 pounds of wheat, I can make 16 pounds of bread, 16 pounds of pasta, or 1 pound of meat. See, to get 1 pound of meat, I've got to feed that cow 16 pounds of grain. So the question becomes, do you really think that you deserve the food for 15 other people? Like, exactly what religion are you that tells you that you deserve the food for 15 other people? They should starve so you can eat meat. So things like that are really, really hard to argue with. Similarly, water. The amount of water, I mean, if you talk to people about water, our government is doing this fantastic Mission Life program, right? To teach not only Indians, but people all over the world how to help abate climate change, how to help protect the environment, how to save water. Turn off the tap while you're brushing your teeth. Turn off the tap while you're lathering up for your 20 seconds with soap. Bathe from a bucket rather than a shower that just keeps pouring down on you. And that's great, but the amount of water that you use in the production of meat is the same amount of water. 1 meal of hamburgers is the same amount of water that goes into your bath for 6 months. If you bathe every day, not from a bucket, but from a shower, the amount of water that you use in 6 months is the same amount of water that goes into 1 meal of hamburgers. And if you bathe from a bucket, then it's more like the amount of water that you would use, in a year. So you'd have to literally not bathe for between 6 months to a year, depending on your bathing habits, in order to offset the amount of water wasted in that production of hamburgers. So these sorts of statistics are really powerful. And they're the ones that I use with people who are not already vegetarian or vegan. Because I feel like the spiritual arguments, everybody, they're there, they're obvious. And if I haven't yet changed my eating habits, it means that I don't believe that, or that doesn't touch me. Lastly, the vegan aspect. In India, when we talk about vegetarian, it includes not eating eggs. In the West, the gap between vegetarian and vegan is eggs and dairy. But in India, the gap is only dairy, because as vegetarians, we already don't eat eggs. And there are people and places, like this ashram is one of them, Some people I stayed with in Ahmedabad day before yesterday and other ones who actually have their own cows. And the cows are treated like members of the family. Fed what the rest of the family eats. The babies live with them. It's literally like, the in-law annex. Call it a goshala, call it the guest house, call it the in-law annex. But they're really treated like that. Loved, cared for. Nobody ever gets killed or harmed. Nothing like that. And in cases like that, assuming that the cows are fed organically, that you never give them antibiotics or steroids or anything like that, well, then the milk is nectar. And it's taken like prasad. But if that milk is coming from a commercial dairy, then it's violence because of the way that the cows are being treated. And anyone who doesn't know this, just go to YouTube. Pull out your phone, go to YouTube, search for videos on the way that dairy cows are treated. There's hundreds of them. And you will see the treatment of the being we call Gomata in these dairies, being beaten, the babies stolen away the minute she gives them, being literally raped. If you see the way these guys who work in the dairies, because all these cows are artificially inseminated, and if you see the way that these men, and this is all on video, are artificially inseminating them, literally sticking their entire arms, I'm sorry to be vulgar, but it's the current truth of the situation, literally sticking their entire arms inside of her with a needle to artificially impregnate her, calling her the sorts of names that you would call a prostitute. All of this is on video. She's literally being raped. And so it's violence. She may not be killed today, but the minute her milk production lessens, then she's killed. Then she's sold off to the beef farmers. So we stop drinking milk because we love mother cow. And that's another great thing, is there's so many people, the vast majority of people in this country are vegetarians. Because we do love mother cow. Because we do believe that she's holy and sacred. And if you can help people understand the way that most of the commercial dairies are treating her, they'll realize it's just as violent as eating meat. And so frequently the dairies and the meat industries are together, because if I've got a dairy cow that no longer gives me milk, I'm selling her off to the beef people. When she gives birth to babies, I'm selling them off to the beef people. So they're working as one team. So that should give you enough gentle and loving but strong ammunition in this battle of love. Non-violent battle of love and non-violence. Yeah. Thank you. Beautiful. Have a beautiful rest of your evening. Our satsang will now be running each evening again, right after the arati. So I look so forward to seeing you all tomorrow. And have a beautiful